The concept of elegance, that intangible quality that transcends mere fashion and settles deep within the soul of a gentleman, feels at times like a fading echo in our modern, bustling world. We look around today and see trend after trend, fleeting moments of style that burn brightly for a second, before vanishing into the noise of the next big thing. True charm, the kind that can stop a room and hold it captive with nothing more than a raised eyebrow or a precisely tailored suit, feels rare, almost mythological. It makes one wonder, where did that defining spark go, that undeniable, effortless charisma that once seemed to shape the very foundation of masculine beauty? There was an era, not so long ago, yet seemingly distant in its ethos, when this brand of rugged sophistication wasn't just admired, it was the gold standard. It was a time when the silver screen didn't just project images but forged icons whose expressive eyes and romantic aura captivated millions around the globe. These weren't just actors reading lines, they were living embodiments of a timeless allure, crafting a legacy that still, remarkably, sets the benchmark for what it means to be truly magnetic. They possessed a kind of magic that resonated far beyond the box office, defining the very essence of masculinity for generations. We find ourselves today, perhaps, feeling a touch nostalgic, a bit disconnected from that polished, composed strength. We admire the rugged, the rebellious, and the refined, and yet the combination of all three in perfect, harmonious balance seems elusive in the contemporary landscape. It is a presence we yearn to understand, a code of style and conduct we wish to crack, wondering if such captivating grace is simply a relic of the past or something that can be reawakened. This quiet contemplation brings us to a crucial realization. Perhaps, to understand where we are going, we must first look back and truly appreciate the enchanting presence of those who first defined the path. But who were these individuals, really? They were more than just flawlessly handsome faces carefully curated by studio systems. They were forces of nature, men who carried the weight of mythic beauty with surprising ease and whose influence stretched far beyond the glamour of Hollywood's premiere nights. Before we dive into the heart of what happened to this legendary standard of masculinity, and indeed, what is happening right now, we must first allow ourselves to be fully immersed in the atmosphere they created. We must feel the echo of their charm and recall the names that once made the world hold its breath, paving the way for a story that is both a tribute and a revelation. The journey to understanding true, enduring icon status begins here, in the golden reflection of their light, just as the curtain rises on a narrative much more immediate than it first appears. As we step through the threshold of history, the vague outlines of these legends begin to sharpen into focus, revealing the faces that did more than just fill a frame. They defined an entire worldview. This wasn't merely a collection of handsome men, but a clash of philosophies, where every look, every suit, and every gesture was a statement of what it meant to be a man in the full light of the world's gaze. The tension of this era lay in its diversity, a constant push and pull between the refined aristocrat and the raw rebel, the principled hero and the dangerous outsider. It was a time when beauty was a heavy mantle, worn with grace that seemed both effortless and meticulously crafted, and as we look closer, we see the intricate details that made these figures immortal. We begin with the man who was often considered the very definition of the word debonair. Cary Grant was a masterclass in controlled elegance, a figure who appeared to have stepped out of a dream and onto the set of films like To Catch a Thief. His legacy was built on refined features and immaculate suits, yet it was his effortless charm that truly made him the gold standard of masculine style. Even as he reached the age of 82, Grant remained the quintessential leading man, a figure of wit and screen grace, who continues to shape how we imagine the perfectly dressed gentleman. There was a precision to his presence, a sense that every movement was calculated for maximum charm, creating a standard that felt both impossibly high and deeply inspiring. Yet, as the era progressed, a different kind of magnetism began to emerge. One that traded polished suits for a restless, rugged beauty. Paul Newman became the face of this new energy, his legendary blue eyes serving as a window into a spirit that felt perpetually uneasy and deeply compelling. In films like Cool Hand Luke, Newman didn't just play a character, he embodied a kind of masculine cool that felt entirely authentic. When he passed away at 83, he left behind much more than his movie star looks. He had become a symbol of quiet rebellion and a kind of natural charisma that felt unmatched. Using his influence for philanthropy and proving that true beauty was as much about character and conviction as it was about a striking profile, this tension between the refined and the raw reached its peak when looking across the sea to European cinema. Alain Delon was often hailed as the most beautiful man in the world, a title he earned through icy perfection and aristocratic features that felt almost too sharp for reality. In Le Samouraï, his wild masculine edge was tempered by a cold, calculating gaze, turning every scene into a visual legend. Passing away at 88, his influence reached far beyond acting into the worlds of producing and fashion, remaining one of the clearest and most enduring ideals of male beauty. Delon represented a different kind of danger, one that was silent, sleek, and utterly hypnotic. In sharp contrast to Delon's icy precision stood the volcanic, earthy sensuality of Marlon Brando. He was the man who redefined what it meant to be beautiful by injecting it with a raw, almost primitive intensity. In A Streetcar Named Desire, his smoldering eyes and tightly drawn lips created an image of masculinity that was as magnetic as it was unpredictable. Brando was the architect of a new kind of screen power, one rooted in emotional depth and a fearless willingness to be vulnerable. When he passed at 80, he left a legacy that had completely transformed the image of the modern male icon, moving away from the polished and toward the visceral. However, the world still needed figures it could trust. Men whose beauty was rooted in a sense of calm authority. Gregory Peck filled this role with a warm, principled handsomeness that made him an immediate favorite. With his square jaw and deep, resonating voice, he became the ideal man that audiences felt they could rely on, particularly in the timeless Roman holiday. Passing at 87, Peck remained a lasting symbol of integrity and classic style. His was a beauty that felt noble, a screen presence that suggested that true strength came from within, inspiring generations to see the value in a life led with conscience and grace. But the 1960s brought a sharper edge to the screen. Personified by the man who would define the modern action hero, Sean Connery possessed a deadly charm, a broad-shouldered masculinity that felt both effortless and dangerously seductive. In Dr. No, he set a new standard for male allure, creating an image of authority that was both polished and lethal. Even as he aged into a mature screen charisma, passing away at 90, he remained a timeless model of strength and style. He was a figure of immense presence, a man who could command a room with a single glance and who helped shape the very idea of what a global icon should be. The landscape of beauty was further expanded by those who brought an almost mythic quality to their roles. Peter O'Toole, with his striking blue eyes and a beauty that felt both fragile and commanding, created one of the most mesmerizing images in cinema history in Lawrence of Arabia. He was a creature of the stage and screen, a man of literary wit and towering influence who lived to 81. His elegance was not of this world, a shimmering, almost ethereal presence that showed how beauty could be used to convey complex, haunting emotions. Beside him in that desert epic was Omar Sharif, a man who radiated a mysterious Middle Eastern beauty that was impossible to ignore. His burning eyes and dazzling smile made films like Dr. Zhivago feel deeply romantic and utterly unforgettable. Passing at 83, Sharif's legacy stretched beyond film into international cultural influence, remaining a symbol of global charm and intelligence. He was the bridge between cultures, a man whose allure was universal, and whose presence suggested a world of hidden depths and sophisticated grace. The story of these icons was also one of intellectual intensity, seen in the brooding, scholarly beauty of Richard Burton. He possessed a dark magnetism and a hypnotic voice that turned every film into a showcase for sheer emotional power. Whether in Cleopatra or on the stage, Burton was a force of nature, a man of Shakespearean brilliance who lived to 58. His legacy was one of literary depth and volcanic charisma, a reminder that the most captivating kind of beauty is often the one that is rooted in language, intellect, and a profound sense of feeling. These figures were the pillars of an era that refused to be simple, weaving together a tapestry of masculinity that was as diverse as it was enduring, setting the stage for the stories of those who would carry this torch into a new age. As the mid-century sun began to set on the traditional studio system, a new kind of radiance emerged, one that blended the polished perfection of the past with a more grounded, often sun-drenched reality. This transition marked the moment when the movie star became more than an untouchable god. They became a reflection of the changing world, a symbol of artistic independence and social conscience. Leading this charge was Robert Redford, who embodied the golden American ideal with his sunlit hair and a sense of healthy, natural freedom. In Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, he captured an enduring image of cool that felt both classic and entirely fresh. But Redford's essence wasn't just in his appearance. It was in how he used his status to build something lasting through the Sundance Institute and environmental advocacy. He showed that a leading man's beauty could be a platform for a much larger cultural influence, proving that charisma and conscience were a powerful, world-changing combination at the same time. The industry was grappling with its own definitions of masculinity and the private lives of its icons. Rock Hudson, with his tall, broad-shouldered frame and flawlessly handsome face, was the ultimate romantic lead, immortalized in the light-hearted charm of pillow talk. Yet his legacy eventually reached a depth that no film could capture. Passing at 59, he became a pivotal figure in human history by raising public awareness during the AIDS crisis. His life and death forced a global conversation, proving that even the most iconic symbols of classic masculinity were human, vulnerable, and capable of sparking immense social change. This was the era where the screen legend met the harsh realities of the world, and in doing so, they became more significant than ever before. The atmosphere of the time was also defined by a sense of effortless, almost playful sophistication. Dean Martin radiated this vibe with his relaxed smile and smoky voice, a cocktail in hand as he redefined the ultimate icon of cool. In Rio Bravo, his masculinity felt smooth and self-assured, a stark contrast to the more rigid heroes of the decade. This was a beauty rooted in ease, an invitation to enjoy life with a certain swagger that didn't take itself too seriously. Beside him, William Holden brought a rugged, deeply believable kind of handsomeness to films like Sunset Boulevard. His weathered good look suggested a life lived with conviction and realism, and his off-screen dedication to wildlife conservation in Africa added a layer of substance to his screen power. These men were showing the world that being a man meant having the freedom to be both a charming entertainer and a person of serious purpose. As the 1950s and 60s pushed further into new territory, the image of the star became increasingly polished yet rebellious. George Peppard projected a glossy sophistication in Breakfast at Tiffany's, capturing the refined charm of a generation that valued poise and confident style. But right on his heels was Steve McQueen, the king of cool, who defined a rebellious male beauty with his dusty charisma and hard stare. In Bullet, McQueen didn't just act. He moved with a restless energy that felt untamed and completely his own. His legacy reached into motorsport and fashion, creating a style of toughness that still feels unmatched today. This was the era where the pretty boy was replaced by the man of action, where Tony Curtis could bring youthful, glossy handsomeness to Spartacus while maintaining a playful elegance that made him one of the most photogenic stars in history. Yet, amidst all this rebellion and gloss, there remained a profound need for characters rooted in decency and moral strength. James Stewart embodied this perfectly, his lanky charm and gentle smile making him the very image of the trustworthy family man in It's a Wonderful Life. His masculinity wasn't about force, but about kindness and emotional honesty. This principled approach was mirrored by Henry Fonda, whose lean features and calm voice gave a sense of dignity to the Grapes of Wrath. And then there was Sidney Poitier, a man who brought a rare beauty of dignity and moral authority to the screen, breaking barriers with every measured glance in the heat of the night. These men were the conscience of cinema, proving that noble screen presence and cultural progress were inextricably linked, and that the most enduring form of beauty was one rooted in character. This golden era was further enriched by theatrical giants and icons of pure style. Laurence Olivier brought a regal, classical beauty to the screen, his sculpted features and commanding voice making him a dramatic legend. Meanwhile, Frank Sinatra embodied pure cool with his sharp suits and velvet voice, a lasting symbol of swagger and masculine sophistication. They were joined by Burt Lancaster, who combined an athletic physique with an intellectual face, and Kirk Douglas, whose explosive charisma and famous cleft chin made him a force of nature in films like Spartacus. Charlton Heston, with his square jaw and commanding stature, became the face of epic heroes, a towering symbol of the scale and grandeur that only old Hollywood could produce. These were the titans who made the world feel larger than life, providing a sense of awe that still resonates in the history of film. However, the true essence of this report lies in the realization that these legends weren't just icons of their own time. They were the architects of a timeless standard. Whether it was the unique, fierce poise of Yul Brynner, the lovable, intellectual charm of Jack Lemmon, or the easygoing, approachable handsomeness of James Garner, these men provided a roadmap for how to carry oneself with grace. They were followed by the quintessential British sophistication of Rex Harrison and David Niven, and the powerful, earthy intensity of Anthony Quinn. And then there were the symbols of pure, youthful defiance: James Dean, the ultimate rebel; Elvis Presley, the king of magnetism; and Montgomery Clift, the soulful rival who redefined male vulnerability. Together, they created a kaleidoscope of what it meant to be magnetic, showing that beauty could be found in strength, in kindness, in rebellion, and even in sorrow. Their importance lies in the fact that they didn't just entertain us. They taught us how to dream, how to act with integrity, and how to find our own unique sense of style in a world that is always changing. The evolution of the Hollywood leading man didn't just happen in the shadows of sound stages. It was a physical and cultural transformation that saw the ideal of masculinity stretch to fit new and often daring molds. This expansion of the hero's path is perhaps best seen in the men who took on the mantle of the jungle and the open road, bringing a raw, athletic vitality to the screen that felt both primal and modern. Ron Ely was a standout in this regard, bringing a commanding height and an intelligent ruggedness to the role of Tarzan. He moved away from the more primitive interpretations of the past, offering a polished version of the character that resonated with television audiences. His legacy, stretching until his passing at 86, was one of incredible physical discipline and a deep devotion to family, proving that the strength of a hero wasn't just in his muscles but in his character. This era also celebrated men like Lex Barker, whose broad shoulders and clean-cut handsomeness made him a definitive Tarzan of the 1950s, eventually finding a second life as a massive star in European cinema. Beside him, Denny Miller combined the healthy beauty of a true sportsman with a natural physical presence that allowed him to transition from the athletic world to a long, versatile career in entertainment. These were the men who proved that the physical ideal was a foundation upon which a lasting, multifaceted life could be built. Across the ocean, this same spirit of ruggedness was being filtered through a uniquely European lens, most notably by Jean-Paul Belmondo. He brought a crooked grin and a fearless energy to the screen, defining a brand of hugely handsome charm that was entirely his own. In films like Breathless, Belmondo didn't just act. He swaggered, embodying a style of masculinity that was bold, untamed, and deeply influential. When he passed at 88, he left behind a legacy of rebellion and athletic charisma that still inspires those who seek a style of cool that isn't dependent on traditional perfection. This same restless energy was mirrored in America by figures like Dennis Hopper, who transformed from a youthful romantic presence in his early days into a wild, unpredictable aura that defined the counterculture. Hopper was a true Hollywood original, a man whose path took him through acting, directing, and photography, leaving an indelible mark on the industry before passing at 74. His journey was a testament to the power of reinvention, much like that of Sal Mineo, whose sensitive and restless beauty in Rebel Without a Cause introduced an emotionally vulnerable kind of young masculinity to the world. Though his life was tragically cut short at 37, Mineo's influence remains a cornerstone of how we understand the complex, human side of the male icon as we look at the landscape of these legends today, in the year 26. We see that the fire of their charisma hasn't dimmed, it has simply evolved into a seasoned, powerful wisdom. Bruce Dern remains a towering example of this enduring spirit. Known for his weathered intensity and a restless edge that perfectly suited the new Hollywood era, Dern has never slowed down. Now at 89, he continues to seek out challenging, independent roles that match his raw style, including his recent project, The World's Happiest Man, which reached audiences on demand in early 26. His path is one of relentless artistry, a sentiment shared by Walter Koenig. Forever recognized as the youthful face of Pavel Chekhov in Star Trek, Koenig has transitioned into a cherished legend of the fan circuit. At 89, his 26 schedule is as busy as ever, with major appearances planned for events like MegaCon Orlando and the massive 60th anniversary trek to Vegas. He remains a warm, highly visible link to a golden era of science fiction, showing that a star's connection with their audience can span decades without losing its spark. The legacy of these icons is also being carried forward by those who have stepped behind the camera to shape the next generation. Jonathan Frakes, once the quintessential on-screen legend, has become one of the most reliable and visionary directors in television. Now 73, he continues to guide the Star Trek universe by directing episodes of Starfleet Academy, proving that a classic star can age into a modern creative powerhouse. Meanwhile, Billy D. Williams, the man who turned Lando Calrissian into a timeless symbol of magnetic cool, continues to embrace his status as a living icon. At 88, he remains a major draw for fans, with high-profile appearances already locked in for 26. These men are not just reminiscing about the past, they are actively participating in the cultural conversation, showing that true swagger is ageless. This sense of enduring presence is also found in Alan Oppenheimer, who, at 95, keeps a lower profile but remains an instantly recognizable voice of authority, and Bernie Capel, the charming face of The Love Boat, who at 92 still makes hearts skip a beat during theatre nights and cast reunions. Even when faced with personal challenges, these legends continue to inspire through their resilience and grace. Alan Alda, whose boyish smile and quick intelligence made him a household name, has spent the last decade living with Parkinson's disease and navigating the complexities of face blindness. Yet at 90, he remains a sharp and funny presence in public, using his platform to advocate for science and communication. Similarly, Terence Hill, the blue-eyed heartthrob of Europe, has found a serene second act. Now 86, he cherishes his long-running legacy while finding peace through his faith and the simple joy of running his family's gelato shop. Their paths show that there is a profound beauty in every stage of life, whether it is found in the spotlight of a convention hall or the quiet rhythm of a family business. From Dirk Benedict's support of his son's soccer scouting in Montana to William Katz's work with his own comic brand, these icons are living proof that the spirit of the golden generation is still very much alive, weaving their legendary pasts into a vibrant, active present. This story of endurance reaches its peak with the elder statesmen who have become the very pillars of cinematic history. Malcolm McDowell, at 82, continues to dive into new independent films, balancing his status as a screen provocateur with a quiet, antique-filled life in Ojai. Greg Evigan has traded the trucking-era superstardom for the world of orchestral composition, while Jon Voight and Beau Bridges embrace a more reflective, family-focused pace at 86 and 83 respectively. We see the quiet dignity of Peter Fonda's legacy and the sensual vulnerability that Giancarlo Giannini still brings to select roles at 83. Michael Douglas, at 81, and Ian McKellen, at 86, continue to grace the world with their seasoned perspectives, while the legendary Michael Caine, now 92, enjoys a well-earned retirement as the definitive voice of British cool. Even the tragic path of Jan Michael Vincent, whose life was a mix of immense glory and personal hardship, serves as a reminder of the raw, brilliant talent that defined this era. These men were never just actors. They were the architects of our cultural imagination, and as we move toward the final chapter of their story, we realize that their influence is as permanent as the stars they once were. The narrative of the Golden Generation does not truly end with the passing of time, but rather it settles into a deep, resonant legacy that continues to influence the very fabric of our modern culture. We find ourselves now in early 26, looking at a world that has been profoundly shaped by these men, not just in how we view the screen, but in how we understand the journey of life itself. The Golden Flame isn't a flickering candle of the past, but a bright, steady beacon that reminds us that true star power is born from a mixture of raw talent, unique personality, and an unwavering commitment to one's craft. As we witness the remaining icons of this era navigate their 8th and 9th decades, we see a masterclass in how to age with dignity, purpose, and a continued connection to the audiences that have loved them for a lifetime. Take, for instance, The relentless energy of Bruce Dern, who at 89 remains a vivid reminder of the new Hollywood spirit. His career has never been about playing it safe, and his presence in the early 26 release of The World's Happiest Man proves that his weathered intensity is as captivating now as it was decades ago. He represents the actor as a lifelong seeker, someone who treats the screen as a canvas for raw, unfiltered human truth. This same spirit of endurance is mirrored in Walter Koenig, whose sharp intensity as Pavel Chekhov remains a permanent fixture in the hearts of millions. Now 89, Koenig's schedule for 26 is a testament to his status as a highly visible legend, from the halls of MegaCon Orlando to the grand stage of the 60-year anniversary Star Trek event in Vegas. He remains a warm and approachable bridge to a visionary past, proving that a star's light only grows more cherished as the years pass. This transition from being the face of a movement to becoming the guardian of a legacy is also evident in the career of Jonathan Frakes. At 73, he has fully evolved from a screen heartthrob into one of the most reliable and innovative creative powerhouses in the industry. By directing new chapters like Starfleet Academy, Frakes demonstrates that the classic stars of the golden generation possess a wealth of knowledge that is vital for shaping the next era of storytelling. Similarly, Billy D. Williams continues to embody a level of smooth, magnetic cool that simply cannot be manufactured. At 88, his presence at major events like FanX in 26 shows that his swagger is as timeless as ever, a living reminder that some men don't just follow trends, they define them for eternity. These are the men who show us that the second and third acts of a life can be just as impactful as the first. Fueled by a passion that refuses to dim, the resilience we see in these legends often transcends the professional and enters the deeply personal. Alan Alda's journey is perhaps the most moving example of this, as he continues to live with Parkinson's and face blindness with the same quick intelligence and boyish charm that first made him a star. Now 90, his ability to remain sharp, funny and inspiring is a testament to the strength of the human spirit. In Europe, Terence Hill finds a different kind of peace at 86, balancing his legendary status with the simple, grounded life of a family-run gelato shop and the quiet reflections of his faith. Even Dirk Benedict and William Catt, icons of 80s and 70s television, show us how to blend a legendary past with modern-day entrepreneurship and creative freedom. Whether it is Benedict supporting his son's soccer scouting or Catt managing his comic brand and voicing iconic characters, these men are living their lives with a sense of agency and joy that is truly infectious. As we look toward the elder statesmen of this group, we see a profound sense of reflection and grace. Malcolm McDowell, at 82, continues to challenge himself with indie roles while enjoying the serenity of Ojai, and Greg Evigan channels his creative energy into beautiful orchestral compositions. The seasoned perspectives of Jon Voight, Beau Bridges, and Giancarlo Giannini provide a sense of historical weight to the industry, while Michael Douglas and Ian McKellen remain cherished cultural figures whose every appearance is a masterclass in elegance and authority. And then there is Michael Caine, who at 92 stands as the definitive voice of British cool, largely retired and focused on family, yet forever etched into the collective memory as a man of dry wit and effortless charm. These lives, marked by both great triumphs and personal challenges, form a tapestry of human experience that is as vast as the history of Hollywood itself. In the end, we realize that these men were far more than just handsome faces on a screen. They were the architects of an ideal, defining the boundaries of elegance, rebellion, strength, and romance for countless generations. They showed us that masculinity is not a single, rigid concept, but a diverse and beautiful spectrum that includes kindness, vulnerability, and principled strength. Their faces belong to a specific era, yet their charisma, style, and character feel as immediate and relevant today as they ever did. They are the Golden Flame, a collection of legends who taught us how to dream bigger and live more authentically. As we look back on their remarkable paths, we are reminded that true beauty is found in the life one leads and the legacy one leaves behind. Which of these classic heartthrobs captured your heart the most throughout the decades? Is it the refined elegance of the early pioneers, the rebellious spirit of the mid-century icons, or the seasoned grace of the legends still with us today? We invite you to share your favorite memories and tributes in the comments below, as we celebrate these unforgettable figures who transformed the silver screen into a place of myth and magic. Don't forget to like this report and subscribe to Golden Flame Star as we continue to honor the enduring brilliance of Hollywood's most iconic men. Thank you for joining us on this journey through a century of style, charm, and legendary screen power. Python print generating news banner image for Golden Flame Star. Результат выполнения кода generating news banner image for Golden Flame Star. Golden Flame Star